Benefactor underwriting for this broadcast has been provided by a grant from Republic Bank. The power of red is back. Major underwriting support for this broadcast has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Customers Bank, Collins Building Services, Marks Paneth. Additional underwriting support has been provided by grants from AmTrust Title, Bank of America, Capital One Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC, Handler Real Estate Organization, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Catsimatidis Red Apple Group, New Banks, Meridian Capital Group, Ocean First Bank, RPW Group, TD Bank, the One Stop Property Group, and these friends.
Oh, Crystal Apple, I've had you for many years. Hard to believe it's the 22nd season of the Stoller Report. And today I have a bunch of friends who've been with me many years over since the beginning of the show. But Crystal Apple, tell me the story. People say that the office market is really doing well in the fall of 2022. Is that really taking place? Are people renting space? Are landlords in the boiler seat? Are they the captain today? I don't know the answers. So today I've assembled a group of business leaders to provide their insight on the topic of the office market. My guest includes my friend Scott Gallen, who is a principal at Handro Properties and ESH Investments. Michael Giglio, who is the CFO at Kaufman Management. And last but not least, the infamous, you like that, infamous Bruce Mosler, who's the chairman of global brokerage at that's known as Cushman & Wakefield. What's happening, and we have a tale of two different cities because it's a different world. What's happening in the buildings that you own? And tell my group, my audience, what type of properties you do own.
I'd say our core office properties in New York are what we like to call B+ office properties. They range from 100 to 200,000 square feet, principally in the Garment District. And what's happened is, 2.5 years ago, we didn't know what would happen and didn't know if we'd lose 80% of the tenancy. Got in the next day, started reaching out to tenants. All our existing tenants had 300 Zoom meetings. And we had to do a lot of work with these tenants, and we picked and choose who we did with based on their viability. And it's 2.5 years later, and I'm very pleased where we are. We're occupancy over 90%. We've made a whole bunch of new deals in the last 6 months, albeit the rents aren't what the rents were. We're probably down 15, 20, 25% on average. And we definitely see towards the Q2 of this past year way more activity, and we measure that by viewing. How many people are coming to look at the space? There were times when you had a good space on the market during this thing where you had one a week.
Have we reached a certain level of number of people coming to work 5 days a week? Have we reached the level, you said we've had a 20% reduction in rents. Where have we seen the numbers come to fruition?
I think for our buildings, people are coming to work 4 or 5 days a week, and I think that's because of the tenancy. These are small and medium-sized entrepreneurs who can't really work from home. They can, but it doesn't work well. The technology's there, and everyone's sort of chief cook and bottle washer in a medium-sized business. So we are seeing about 90% of tenants come in every day. Someone is in the space. And we believe we have about 60% a day over the 5 days, and most tenants are in 3 to 5 days a week in the last 120 days.
And what are you seeing? Let's talk about your portfolio.
So I have a little bit of a different perspective than Scott does. And the perspective that I have is what came to fruition. The key word in your question was fruition. As the CFO, I look at the metrics as they occur. So if I'm looking at the historical period of 2019, 2020, 21, and 22, and I look at leasing volume, I'm looking at leasing volume, let's say at 100% in 2019, falling to an average of 50% in 2020. And it's climbed back in 2021 to approximately 80%. And by the third quarter, 2021, 2022, it's still at that 80%, but a different set of factors occurred in the 2021 market than the 2022 market. I mean, geopolitical, 2022 is very heavy on that. And there's probably, I finished this third quarter on the leasing side with probably 5% less than I finished my third quarter last year. However, I think that the sentiment in the markets is not only driven by the availability of office space and the demand for office space, but what's happening on Wall Street and what's happening in terms of investments. So Kaufman core buildings were one of the reasons that I came to Kaufman, because they were very low leveraged, and the partners always had money set aside from distributions in order to be able to put into the capital programs. Like you say, Bruce, invested buildings. Those are invested buildings. The other side of the invested buildings are the institutional portfolio. The institutional portfolio will always be there with the money because they don't want their investment to go bad. So they're going to keep putting whatever money you recommend as an operating partner into those buildings in order to make those buildings more leasable than the neighboring buildings. So our strategy is, it's a little bit different. And as the CFO, I look at things a little bit differently. What results have I gotten? And this year, I think maybe we'll finish this year at the same level of last year, at 80%. I talk about collection of rents. I mean, what do you do in collection of rents? Well, when we were billing 100% pre-pandemic, we had to negotiate deferral agreements and all sorts of things with tenants because they were our partners. We had to keep them in the game, right? We had to keep them paying rent so that we could continue to pay operating expenses. And we actually had to lower that metric because we were collecting 60% of 100%. Later on, when we adjusted rents overall to an 80%, which is where you were talking about 15, 20, 25, we adjusted rents to 80%. We were collecting 96, 97, 98% of that. But that's a break even, right?
Bruce, let's talk about the largest business, larger buildings, the Hudson Yards, Midtown South, and so on. What's going on?
So, Michael, to your question, we've seen a real profound bifurcation in the market, what we call a flight to quality. But I don't leave it at flight to quality. We also have to talk about assets that have been, as we just discussed, really well invested in, that have developed amenity centers, that have made the lobby almost a welcome center, much like you would see in the hospitality sector. In the flight to quality, we've seen demand return this year to almost the 10-year average, which means that we're going to see almost 26 million square feet absorbed. That's significant, and it tailors to what we're seeing as a return to work. Now, the biggest issues we're facing in this city and gateway cities around the world is what does that mean, return to work? What's the hybrid workplace going to mean in terms of number of days in the office? We're beginning to sort of get some answers to these questions, but we're in the early stages. We think.
What are the answers?
So some of the answers.
Scott has a different return to work. A lot of
100% his folks are returning, but in the they call it the sort of Class A new developments where we're seeing the significantly larger corporations. I think it's gradual. Now we just post September, we're seeing occupancy at around 46, 47%. We expect it to go higher than 50% for the balance of the year. But
do we ever reach 75?
I think we do. Look, I think, as I said, we're early days. The hybrid workplace or workforce is something that we've seen the use of technology and how corporations are adapting to it. But in the end, innovation and collaboration happen when you're under the same roof. That's what many corporate leaders are beginning to see. That's why we're seeing some demand to return to the workplace. Others are taking it more slowly. Others are being more thoughtful. But in the end, it's also about workplace innovation. People want to come back to something new. And the most important point I think I can make is that CEOs recognize that to attract the better talent, that they have to have a workplace that they want to come back to. So that's driving their decision making. And we're still early stage on that side of the ledger as well, but we can see some of the changes. Collaboration space, instead of the executives having offices on the perimeter, they're going to have offices on the interior. Buildings are going to have to meet not just green standards, but perhaps what we call ESG standards. These are all things that are now being taken into consideration by companies where they relocate so that they can attract the best and the brightest in terms of the workforce.
What's happening, this is a question for any of you, the co-working space, the WeWorks of the world, the Industrious. I mean, many of the companies, the competitors of yours have bought interest in these companies right now. Scott?
We do a lot of brokerage work, and we often were called upon to do some of that stuff as bridge deals and things. And people got very skittish during the pandemic. And we actually were pretty successful in a building where we have 1,000-foot spaces, and we sort of set out in 2020, we said walls and doors, and we were able to pull a lot of people out of co-working spaces because they wanted sort of walls and doors, and it worked great. Right now, in some of the brokerage deals we're in, we find they don't want to go into the co-working spaces as bridge opportunities. I don't know in general though how the co-working spaces are faring, other than all the stuff you read about.
Do you have any co-working tenants?
We at 119 West 27th Street, we saw some contraction at New York City Alley, which was one of our tenants. They gave back one of our floors. Another space that we had at 234 Fifth Avenue, there was another tenant there who had, I think, 4 of the floors in there above Chipotle. And they had a very tough time with people coming back, and they were having a difficult time with, payment of rent. Ultimately, we'd love to get that jewelry box space back, but, that's still a work in process.
And what are you seeing on...
I think coworkers play a significant role today, and when you look at a corporation's total portfolio. When we advise corporation, we talk about the need for flexibility. The single biggest challenge still is, what do I need to really have in the long run to accommodate my space needs? And part of that is co-working and flexible space. Full disclosure, we have a relationship with one of the larger players in WeWork, and I think that they're doing just fine right now. I think that the coworkers that have the ability to offer a wide range of alternatives and portfolios, even the ability to go from one workplace to another workplace with the same, call it, black card as they're articulating it, or more importantly...
What do you mean the black card?
So it's some of the larger, if you will, coworkers have this system where you can use any of their offices.
The old Regis.
And they'll provide the
Yeah.
transportation.
And they provide the same
it's a gym.
services.
The Regis.
Like a health
So
club
it's,
idea.
but let me just say this. Back to the core question, are they faring well? The bigger players are.
Yes.
Do they have a role in the future? They do. Will it be part of a corporation's larger portfolio? Absolutely, because it gives them flexibility, and flexibility is the ability to scale up or down is very
more
important.
owners like the Tishman Smyers buying these companies? Are we going to see the JLLs, the Cushmans, the CBREs having interest in these companies?
I think it's certainly important to have an affiliation, whether you need an interest or you need to buy it. That's based on your corporate strategy. Not being in management any longer, I don't really drive that bus.
But here's the question.
I think what Bruce said is very true, that the larger companies are going to survive. They're going to pivot. They're going to offer different amenities, different services, the transport between buildings, wherever they want to go, wherever the meeting is. The smaller guys are going to suffer who tried to copy that model, and those are some.
The
New York City
independents,
Alley
a couple of
is a
floors.
smaller
They're gonna be
one. Fresh Space and Nomad is another smaller one.
So what's going to happen to the Regis and the Virgin, the small office share?
Well, Regis is not small.
Not Regis is not
Regis is-
small, but I'm talking about the independent operators.
I don't think it's going to be vastly different than what we saw in the commercial real estate brokerage industry or industry period, which is that some of the smaller players will be absorbed by the larger players because their locations are valuable, or not, as
And
the
they'll
case
cherry,
may be.
the larger
Will cherry-
organizations will cherry pick
Right.
the smaller organizations and bring those into their space inventory.
And what's happening to the new buildings? You know, the success of One Vanderbilt, we all know. Okay, some of the success of Hudson Yards.
Yeah.
Where do you see the future opportunities? I mean, One Madison we're talking about. We're talking
look-
about 555 Madison. Over
550, yep.
Right.
Look, I think new development not only is doing well, it's exceeding pro forma in many cases because corporates want the efficiencies, they want the amenities, and the ability to provide light, air, and these carbon neutral footprints are really essential to corporations who want and have to compete for the talent in the workplace. And what CEOs need today in order to put their workforce in a place that actually enhances the experience for their workforce. That's what this is all about at the end of the day. It's in the war for talent. You have to put your workforce in a place where they want to come back to work, feel good about coming back to work, feel safe about coming back to work, which also means that we're seeing assets that are on a one-stop transportation hub. That's meaningful as well.
Yeah, Michael, also this 100% back to work math is a little bit erroneous because pre-pandemic, the numbers were somewhere between 70 and 75% of people were in on any given day.
That's right.
This was a 10, 15-year migration.
There's
So-
75% before.
You're 100% right.
So to say
Is
60,
100%.
60% are back, if that were
When
the
we hit
case-
70, 75, we're back.
Yeah.
To your point.
And if you hit 60%, you're 80% back of what effectively was pre-pandemic. So the 100's a little misleading.
It is. I also don't want to lead the conversation without saying that, look, we are seeing this bifurcation. It's real. We are seeing assets that are challenged, that are not invested in, and we do have high vacancy. At the end of the day, we're going to face some realities in gateway cities, which is to say, what amongst these assets, who amongst these assets need to be converted to an alternative use? These are challenges that are going to have to be resolved in a master.
In the green room, we were talking a little bit about alternative use. We had talked about the industrial properties in Brooklyn and Queens, which were converted to office. Okay? From what I hear, and I'd like a clarification from anybody here on what's going on, those properties are having difficulties. They're not doing as well, right, Scott?
They weren't doing as well, for sure. There's no doubt in the last 6 to 9 months, there's life there.
There is.
And we see it like sort of dramatically over the last 6 months, more so than in Manhattan, because the demand was always here pre-pandemic. There, the demand was not exactly where everybody wanted it to be in 2019. So I think there's real life down there. And one more thing to Bruce's point about sort of repurposing some of these buildings. I'm involved now in a conversation with lots of people in this industry, with Rebany, about the ability to do that in certain areas where we don't have the ability to zoned right.
So are we going to see a form of business like the 421Gs going back in Lower Manhattan, converting the Bs, the Cs, and the D office buildings to residential?
Talk to the state and the city. And
There would have to be something like that in order for the real estate to survive. In Long Island City, you asked a question earlier, or in the outer areas, we have a building that sat vacant for 3 years, and it was a building that had 60,000 square feet. We recently have signed a deal. If it's not signed now, it'll be signed for 20,000 square feet of that space. But again, that doesn't bring the asset into a cash flow, right?
It took
that'll
3
bring,
years. It was 3
That'll
years.
bring the asset into sort of staving off $1.2 million a year or $1.1 million a year to bring in $800,000 worth of income to sort of
So here's
carry
my
it,
question.
right? We had the city. Wait, let me just finish. We had the city also express an interest in 60,000, the whole building, recently. Whereas we had tours and we had things like you said earlier. I look at what comes to fruition, right? The tours are one thing. We know we're aggressively trying to market the space, but there were no takers at the time.
So what are the
That's
takers?
changing.
So my question is, what are the takers paying from what you originally asked?
So I hope to get $35 a square foot plus $7 in operating costs, 42.
And what did you project when you bought the building? Were you,
Probably
More.
in this stage of the game, as we escalated the model, right? We're 4 years or 3 years into it. we were probably we're probably at 80%, which is the same, it's the same 80%.
But that's a big
coming up
20
on
hole.
so many different equations.
It's a big 20 hole.
Right.
I mean, the operating costs in these buildings are operating.
Taxes go up, insurance goes up, fuel goes up. All of the operating expenses are going up. The bottom
controllable
line
costs
is
are.
reducing.
Yeah, and the real estate taxes went like this in the last we took that giant dip, and then we just picked it back up, and now you're telling tenants, now here's a new tax base after.
Also, interest rates have hit us so hard.
Oh.
Interest rates are fun. We had a deal at one of our portfolios, Madison Square, where we were paying interest of just over 1.5%. Okay, well, the new world opens up, and now we're paying 4.5%. That changes the bottom line dramatically. I mean, and cash flow is limited at that level, but it wasn't before. But if you have an 8.5% debt yield covenant on the mortgage, you could be in a position where the bank is your partner in running that building on a day-to-day basis
I just want to
for
pick
every
up on
month.
what you said because I think it's really important. You have interest rates that
Inflation.
have up. You have inflation.
Taxes.
You have taxes and you have geopolitics, right? And then
So
you
many
have
variables.
and you could put the street in there if you want to in some capacity. At the end of the day, you have a lot of unknowns, is what you're saying. All of these things have yet to reconcile. What we have begun to reconcile, and I, look careful
Right
to
on
say this,
point.
but we are the seventh wave of the variant, but we've declared that it's quote over, and people seem to be, if getting sick, getting well faster, and we have more ways to deal with the disease. So that part of the unknown is at least now moving behind us. Everything else is still ahead, including this hybrid workforce, which I believe in the end, as we see the numbers, will be 3 or 4 days a week. And if it's 3 days a week, it really doesn't change the footprint dramatically. With all the challenges, though we've seen a bifurcation of the market, though we've seen a flight to quality, the next phase for us is to see how demand fares in the coming years. And I think next year demand is going to be surprisingly okay. Will we hit the 10-year average again as we have done this year after several years? Not sure, to be seen. What we need beyond that is a master plan for some of these assets that are of a vintage that requires support to get through it. We have a tremendous leader in the EDC. At the end of the day, Andrew Kimball's done it. He knows how to convert assets. So I think we have to come together as an industry and look at the sectors and the areas and the properties that need incentives to be converted and do what we have to do.
Look, we've done that in certain areas. We need more money on the health sciences. I mean,
Life sciences is a huge growth opportunity for this city with the hospitals that we have, the teaching hospitals that we have. Here again is an area that if we can focus, provide incentives, but more importantly, create the hub that I think we can, that's going to be one of the significant growth areas for New York.
And just to echo what Bruce said, there are a lot of New York skeptics and cynics that the first 3 months of the pandemic, the Post was running articles every day with moving trucks everywhere. The whole city's leaving, everyone's migrating, moving, we're done, we're finished, there won't be any buildings. And, we all went out and bought hats and said, New York is here to stay. And, I got into a lot of arguments with friends and people, we're done, we live in the burbs, we're never coming back in again. I had tenants saying, well, we'll never step foot in Manhattan again. I said, I think you will. And, we fought the good fight, and here we are 2.5 years later. And it's hard to believe every night when I go outside and I sort of walk home, and I look around and I see the droves of tourists, and the streets are busy, and the cabs are. And now on Park Avenue, I'm not even cursing with the traffic every night. I said last night to the cab driver, I like the traffic. Now, but
with the exception of UM Week, baby.
yes,
That's right. That's brutal.
But it's hard to believe what's gone on here from where we were 30 months later, and therefore I have this intuitive feeling, and maybe it's cheerleading, maybe it's economic interest, but it's hard to fathom
New
where
York
we
City
are.
is very
I think
resilient.
It's also fact-based. We
I
are
think
resilient.
this group has proven that we are, and this necessity is the mother of invention. We had the need, we can pivot. Other cities in the world look at us at how are we going to deal with a situation like this, and we put our heads together in this city and we figure it out. We make it work. It will always work. New York will always work in some capacity. It's just a question of what we purpose these assets for.
And the tenancy got more varied over the last 25 years. Bruce could speak to this. San Francisco's an unmitigated nightmare because 75% of the tenants are in one business per se. We were like that 25 years ago here.
Not
Now
anymore.
we have such a varied tenant base in your buildings
You're
and
100%
our
right.
buildings. And it's sort of definitely,
25, 30 years ago, people would understand the word schmata.
but it was,
Not today.
Okay.
Not today.
No, the world, that's life science.
But it was
today,
finance,
okay?
finance.
Schmatas have become life
Today,
science.
today Schmatza is a vacant building.
Finance. Now we are a city.
right.
Bruce can speak to the specs better than I can, but San
No,
Francisco.
The numbers back you up 100%. We were a financial service-driven city. Today, we are so much more robust. The fastest growing sector is what we call the TAMI sector, right? Technology, advertising, media, information-based companies. But without a doubt, that is while it's the fastest growing sector, frankly, if you look at our tenant diversification, it has never been better, never been more robust. We're in a much better place.
And that's how mutual funds were born, diversification.
much better place.
It saved us.
It's an investment. It's an investment that has diversification.
Yeah.
Looking at the biggest apple over there, the super apple, listening to my guests, I'd say that 2022, 2023 are going to be a good year. And we just hope that people like this continue to work in the industry. I'd like to thank Scott, Michael, and Bruce, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Michael.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Michael.